afternoon. My name is Oliver Westmoreland. I am an OISC registered Level 3 advisor and I work as a consultant for GSM Immigration. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell icon so that you can continue to watch our extremely interesting videos about UK visa and immigration advice. Today's topic is adult dependent relative visa. This is quite a large and complex subject. I will try and break it down for you. You, a person living in the UK, might like your adult relative to come and join you in the UK. There are only certain categories of relatives which can apply, and in all cases, the applicant must be at least 18. A parent, a grandparent. Now, the immigration rules make no mention of great-grandparents or great-great-grandparents, so we must assume that they're not permitted. So a parent, grandparent, sibling, brother or sister, or son or daughter. As I said, in every case, the applicant must be at least 18 years old. The basic criterion for this is that your adult relative must require long-term personal care because of age, illness, or disability. Now, this is disjunctive. It doesn't have to be all three because, of course, the applicant could be relatively young. It's age or illness or disability or any two or possibly all three. Because of one of these reasons, they require long-term personal care and are unable to perform everyday tasks because of their condition, and are unable to get the care or the health care that they need in the home country where they're living. Even with financial help that you can provide, they're not able to obtain the care that they need, or perhaps even if you could afford to pay money, for one reason or another, it's not available in their home country. These are the rather difficult hurdles to be met for this visa application. You, the person in the UK, must be one of these: a British citizen, settled in the UK, a refugee or a holder of humanitarian protection, or an EEA national who holds pre-settled status and has been in the UK by 31st of December 2020. If you are one of those types of people, you could qualify as a sponsor. If you're not one of those types of people, then you can't. That's the basic structure. Now, of course, British citizen and settled person, there's no limit on how long they can stay in the UK. If it be that your adult relative can apply, then they can apply for indefinite leave to enter the UK. That means they apply for settled status immediately at the British diplomatic post. If you hold limited leave, of course, a refugee holds limited leave, a holder of humanitarian protection holds limited leave, somebody on pre-settled status holds limited leave. In that case, the dependent relative will have to apply for limited leave to enter the UK, not indefinite leave, and at such time as you, the sponsor, you can extend your leave, then they will have to apply to extend their leave as well. Or perhaps if the sponsor can apply for settlement, then you, the dependent relative, can apply for settlement at the same time. So there are two different possibilities. In every case, the applicant must apply from outside the UK, but depending on the circumstances, they might be applying for indefinite leave to enter or limited leave to enter, depending on the status of the sponsor. The financial test in the UK is not so bad. The financial and accommodation test in the UK is simply that there is adequate money to look after the relative, and there's adequate accommodation. It isn't set out quite as mathematically as other family visa types. That's the basic structure. I can see that there's a lot more things. For example, if the sponsor is a British citizen or a settled person, they have to sign an undertaking that the relative will not claim any public funds for the first 5 years, even if they're granted indefinitely to enter. The sponsor has to sign an undertaking that they won't claim any public funds in that 5 years. If they do, I think the sponsor is going to be in difficulties because they've broken an agreement. Now, as I said, this visa application is expensive. I think this must be the most expensive one in the book. If you're not going to submit a strong application, it might be a terrible waste of your money. The application for indefinitely to enter as an adult dependent relative is £3,250. Now, there is no IHS fee because it's an application for settlement, but that is quite a lot. So that's something you want to bear in mind before you decide to make this application. Mr. Sean, I'm sure you have some questions to ask me. There's a lot of things that we haven't really uncovered yet.
Sure. Thank you so much for elaborating on this. There are so many families living in the UK who would like to bring their, for example, elderly parents or siblings who may need support. And we come across quite a lot of inquiries, and I would like to put forward some of those questions to yourself.
Yes.
A lady has contacted saying her brother resides in outside the UK, and she would like to sponsor the brother. This brother is over 18, however, does suffer with medical conditions, and the parents unfortunately have passed away. Currently, the brother is living with extended family members who are no longer able to take care of him. She would like to find out how long this procedure will take and what requirements she needs to meet.
All right. Would it be true, as far as you know, would it be true to say that the potential applicant can't perform everyday tasks without help?
That's correct. She mentioned the brother has such severe medical conditions that he's most of the time in bed and unable to help himself with most of the daily routine.
And can it be strongly established that the extended family members cannot provide the help and support that he needs? Because I can see that could be a weaker area of the application.
Exactly, that's what the lady mentioned. She mentioned she's tried to get support back home. However, not many things are regulated. She mentioned in the home country, and she may not be able to provide a lot of the documents of the support she tried to obtain.
But
to
can I
support
interrupt
her.
you
Yes.
with one question?
Mhm.
You said that the potential applicant was living with extended family members, and
That's right.
possibly you implied that they had been providing care and support.
They were able to provide some degree of support,
Yeah.
but she mentioned they're unable to provide any further because in the near future they are also moving abroad.
Ah, I see. Okay, if that sounds like a solid reason, because you'd have to give good reasons why they can no longer provide support, but that could be a solid reason. Well, look, I hardly need to say that you need to get very good medical evidence for this application. You need to get very good evidence from a medical practitioner. How long it would take would probably depend on them. But to make this application without strong medical evidence is really going to be a waste of time. And this is quite an expensive visa. However long it takes, it's well worth getting the evidence that you really need, because otherwise you're going to waste your money. And don't forget, as we all know, with the Ukrainian situation, everything is pretty much slowed down at the moment. So it could take a good few months to get the decision. But in any case, this is one of these visa applications where it's difficult to measure the documents. It's not like your bank statement has to show so many thousands of pounds. It's difficult to measure. But the thing that she must get is medical evidence that is sufficiently strong and that says the right things. Now, sometimes that's difficult because a medical practitioner doesn't always want to put what you want them to put, but she will have to get a medical practitioner who will explain the situation in a way that it's going to make it a strong application. And sometimes medical practitioner needs to be guided in that.
Sure.
And of course, if it's not in English, it'll have to appear in English translation.
Perfect. A gentleman contacted saying his mother was visiting from India to the UK, and while she was visiting the UK, sadly, her husband, the gentleman's father, passed away back home, and the health of this lady has deteriorated very badly, and he does not feel safe to send his mother back home. um, would they be able to apply for adult dependent visa here in the UK, or would they be able to submit any other type of application for the lady to live here?
Um, well, those are two different questions. First of all, she won't be able to apply in country for this visa. That's the rule says it very, very clearly. Um, she could potentially make another kind of application, but this would be a different kind of application. It'll probably be a human rights application. It'll probably be based on Article 3 of the European Convention on Human Rights. I must tell you, though, that the threshold for these applications is very high. It's a bit cheaper than the adult dependent visa, but the hurdle is very high. The better scenario was that she did return home and make the adult dependent visa application. I don't say that it's easy. It's not easy at all, but it's, if you can get good evidence, I would say it's more likely to be successful.
Sure. A lady has contacted saying she is doing some research about adult dependent visa, and
This is always a dangerous sign.
and she is gathering information about this visa before she applies for her elderly father.
She's applying herself.
She seems to be doing her research and want to apply herself. However, she's unsure if the application is refused, would she be able to appeal it?
She wouldn't be able to appeal it. The applicant would be able to appeal it in the UK before the first tier immigration tribunal.
Great. Okay, that's great.
But like always, there's no real point in appealing a decision if the decision is fair. If the decision is weak or questionable or flawed, then of course you can appeal. But like always, if you appeal, that's another chunk of money you're spending. It's best to appeal if you've got at least a reasonably strong case.
Sure. A couple has contacted talking about the family member they wish to sponsor from abroad. And they mentioned that this family member has multiple 5-year visitor visa for the UK. And they want to make the adult dependent application from outside the UK as mentioned in the rules. But they're asking, while the application is in process, can this family member still travel to the UK on that visitor visa that they have?
I think that's going to be a bit dodgy. You might be breaking some rules if you come as a visitor. Maybe technically you're on the right side of the rules, because if they hold a visa, they're not making an entry clearance application. Probably if you read the rules absolutely literally, it would not be on the wrong side of the rules. What nationality are they?
The family member who lives abroad is
Yeah.
from Bangladesh.
Okay. Such a person would not be able to sail in through the e-passport gate at the airport, probably. I wouldn't recommend anyone to try this. They might get strongly questioned at the border. I'm not sure that it's against the rules, but I would not recommend it.
Mhm. So if they are questioned at the border and the border agency seems fit to not let this person into the UK on a visitor visa, can this have a negative effect on the adult dependent visa that they have submitted?
I don't think so, no. I mean, on a good day, they might get questioned at the airport. They might let them through anyway. They might detain them for a few hours. I wouldn't try it myself because it's one of those unknown situations. You never know what might happen. But even in a very bad scenario, if they refuse leave to enter, that's not going to affect the dependent relative application. Can I just jump back to the previous question?
Sure.
You were talking about the client who's thinking of making their own application, and if it goes wrong, they're thinking of appealing. Probably better is to make a very strong application that's going to be hopefully successful, because once you're appealing, you're appealing against the application that was made.
Mhm.
Now, if you could possibly have made a better application, perhaps with professional help, then perhaps more chance of success and less requirement to think about appeals.
True. That is true. Another question, very similar to the last question. If somebody applies for an adult dependent visa and it is refused and they do not go to the court, leave it as it is, and sometime later they decide that now they would like to visit the UK on a visitor visa, um, would that application be bound to fail because a long-term settlement application was submitted in the near past?
Yeah, I think this would be a very difficult application. I wouldn't like to make it. There would be very, very strong grounds for the entry clearance officers to refuse that on that sort of basis, which, I mean, really, it's quite logical, isn't it?
Sure. Great. I have another question which is not exactly about adult dependent visa, but it is very similar because people often confuse this visa with another outside rules applications. So, if somebody's in the UK as a visitor and they have submitted a leave to remain application under the human rights grounds,
Like health or something.
exactly,
Yeah.
on health conditions basis, and they're waiting for a decision which perhaps is taking way longer than they anticipated, maybe 7 to 8 months or even longer,
Could be.
and the applicant is now really frustrated with the wait and they would like to travel outside the UK. If they do so, will they be jeopardizing their ongoing application?
I think the application would die if they leave the UK.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if anyone is really going to know immediately it happens, but by the law, if you leave the UK and you've got a pending application, then the application dies.
Automatically.
Yes.
Okay, great. That's a brilliant piece of information that a lot of our viewers can use. I would like to thank you for today's vlog, and we see you in the next one.
Thank you very much indeed. It's been a pleasure.